That's better. Try again.
Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2.
Yes. Perfect.
Got the smooth dulcet sounds.
Got the dulcet tones. That's it. Welcome to GCP Life. This is episode number 11. GCP Life is sponsored by Kasna. At Kasna, we make your Google Cloud solutions possible. I am your host, Stephen Bancroft. And on today's show, we're all in on GCVE. Cloud Armor is not as impenetrable after all. Google in the bad books again. GCP costs you more, yet we tell you how to save some money. And please update your Chrome. But before we get to any of that, I want to introduce the brand new, shiny co-host permanently, Dave Wall. How are you going, Dave?
I'm doing great, thanks, Steve. I'm glad that I passed the interview a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, of course, Ida now has moved on to other things, and we've got Dave Wall here now on a permanent basis. So glad to have you aboard, mate.
Thanks, mate. You're stuck with me now, so...
Stuck with you now, yeah. You got the shiny new mic there and everything?
Yep, all set up.
Excellent. What have you been up to during the last couple of weeks?
It's been busy. We've got a kick-off of a new project, so we're sort of deep in the discovery phase, and that's certainly taking up a lot of cycles.
Yeah, so we're all in on the GCVE at the moment, isn't it? You've got a bit of a lab going there too?
Yeah, that was fun to build out. Quite a lot of changes made to the on-prem / colo / home lab environment to be able to get it up to really kind of a faux enterprise standard, and now all tied in and back to GCVE in the cloud. So all working as it's supposed to. For those of you
that aren't familiar, GCVE is Google Cloud's VMware offering in GCP. And in Australia, it's new. It's a real new thing. Dave and I are both involved in the project. Probably only the first or second client in Australia, I think. That's really been involved with it. Real new. So you'll be hearing more about it. And since we're both so heavily involved in it, I think there will be a lot of content on it on the show over the next few episodes. And we're probably going to do a deep dive, I'd say.
I think it warrants it. It's there's a lot to the solution. There's a lot of cool stuff, and there's a lot of really awesome features, especially for anyone coming from like a legacy traditional on-prem infrastructure. It it really sells itself.
Yeah, and look, before we do have one or two GCV articles, but I just wanted to mention the situation in Russia is just getting worse and worse by the day, but. Russia now has blocked access to Google News. I just wanted to mention that because I did mention last week that Google had stopped new clients from Russia, but Russia now struck back and has blocked Google News along with Instagram and Facebook. I mean, talk about censorship. It's just horrible that the people don't have access to these things that we just take for granted. But yeah, I think. Russia's excuse was Google News was spreading disinformation. Okay, well, we're not a political show, but, I wonder who's spreading the disinformation. Yeah.
I've certainly noticed that apparently in the last, sort of month or so that sort of troll activity has apparently plummeted significantly.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, getting all blocked out, yeah. Yeah, it's the landscape of the internet is probably going to be very different after this hubbub's all over. And, the geopolitical situation is going to be very different as well. It's going to have far-reaching impacts. So very interesting to see how it all pans out in terms of the internet and news and how it's going to affect those kind of outlets. Anyway, we'll get started with things here. And we do want to kick off today's show with a GCVE article, and that is related to VMware licensing. What we have available now is VMware Cloud Universal. What do you know? Do you know more about this, Dave?
Yeah, so where this sort of comes in is previously for GCVE, like you'd rent your nodes, or you get your nodes through VMware Engine, and that would include all your licensing as well. So you didn't have an option to BYO your VMware licensing. You may have had enterprise licensing for hundreds of nodes that you've sort of bought and depreciated over the years, and that wasn't an option to take them with you. You could on some of the other cloud providers. Now with this change, looks like you'll be able to sort of convert some of your on-prem licenses into Cloud Universal, and then looks like you'll be able to actually bring them with you, which I assume is going to have some economic improvements.
Yeah, so to take a quote from the article here, by the way, this is an article on the Next platform by Brandon Vigliario. Probably butchered that name, but there you go. An expanded partnership between VMware and Google Cloud means AWS and Dell are being joined by a third cloud partner for VMware Cloud Universal, which allows VMware licenses to function both on-prem and in the cloud. Google's part in the deal involves making Google Cloud VMware Engine usable with VMware Cloud Universal. So my takeaway from this is if you have, as you were saying, a license on-prem, you can shift that license into cloud, or you're free to move it backwards and forwards between the two, possibly.
Yeah, I think there's a conversion ratio. I don't know if it's right. 1 for 1, but you get some sort of credit for previous years.
Right. But what I don't understand is when you buy GCVE from Google, it's all inclusive. All the cost is inclusive of the license, inclusive of the hardware lease, everything. So how's that? If you've already got a license, do they give you some sort of discount? Is that how that works?
It must be. I haven't seen how to apply this through the console yet, so that might be something we should get a little bit more detail about how you would apply that for a client.
Yep.
But it does appear to be the way. I mean, otherwise, what would be the point of the announcement, right? Like, there's no way for you to put ESX licensing in through the current way. So if Cloud Universal is going to be the way to go going forward, then there must be a way to apply these licenses.
Yeah, you know what? Because come to think about it, we're actually seeing this. Because if you have a client come to us and they go, oh, we've still got 2-3 years left on our license, we want to move to cloud, and they may be in a situation where their data center lease expires, but they want to get out of that. But their licensing doesn't line up, and we've already invested in the license. Well, okay, great, just bring it with you. Come to cloud, we'll give you the reduction on GCVE because you've already got the license.
Yeah, and I think that's where it sells because, like, as you said, it's very rare that you're going to have all of your enterprise agreements, like your VMware one, your hardware one, your data center one, all lining up on the same day. Like that's so rarely going to happen.
That's really yep. There needs to be flexibility with license, and I mean it's just a piece. It's just an NFT, effectively, isn't it? You can just move it across, and I mean, you're not bound by any. Shouldn't be bound by any physical location of where it is. All right. So it'd be good to see how that pans out, and who's actually going to take the offer up, because this, GCVE, I think is about to explode. I mean, the total. Taking another quote from the article here, there's also the saving. Enterprises can reportedly reduced their TCO by 38% over 3 years. Yeah, so there's definitely a saving cost in using GCVE. We've discussed that before, certainly in real dollars and man hours and labour. Yeah,
certainly from a toil perspective, just taking so much of the busy work of managing your hosts and software versioning, and it's having that come off your plate so you can do more valuable work.
You do more, that's right. You can actually look after the application that you're supposed to be doing. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, we'll let you know how that works when we look into it. But something I was looking at during the week, and this is a total tangent from GCVE. This is Cloud Armor. Look, my experience with Cloud Armor is, I mean, I'm getting across it, getting used to it. Pretty familiar with it now. But it seems like a great tool on the surface, but apparently it's not as impenetrable as you think. So if you're not familiar, Cloud Armor is the Layer 7 web application firewall that's built into the Google Cloud front end. You implement it in the load balancer. And the idea of it is to inspect incoming requests and look for known vulnerability exploits in those requests. And it does have a weakness whereby it will not inspect requests that are larger than 8K. So if you want to exploit something, a known exploit, all you've got to do is put some bogus data in your payload, make it over 8K, and bang, it gets through Cloud Armor.
And reading in on this, apparently this is actually it's a fairly common thing. The AWS WAF has the same vulnerability, but I think it's much more about just making people aware, because it's not immediately apparent when you're deploying Cloud Armor that it has this problem. Yeah. So the way to fix it is to block any requests larger than 8K. Right. That just straight up stops it. Right. But this introduces a problem. So you may need more than 8K.
You may need more than 8K, right? And the perfect example I can think of is WordPress, for instance. If you're a developer and you want to upload some files to WordPress, it's bigger than 8K, and 8K is blocked, bang, you're out of luck. And it could be any content management system or any system that needs a post. Then you're out of luck. So what you've got to do is you've got to walk a fine line between deciding what to block and what not to block. And then the question becomes, well, how do you do that? Well, I figured out a way to do that.
Ooh.
I'm going to write a blog article on this. But more or less what you do is you use I'm going to let the cat out of the bag on this one.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. You use a URL map, and you define in that URL map what URLs need the 8K upload. And then you define a couple of different backends in the load balancer, and with that backends, you use the URL map to steer the pages you have defined to the correct backend. And the reason you have a separate backend is because the Cloud Armor security policy is attached to the backend. Right now,
okay, so you can have different policies.
You can have different policies. You can have one policy that blocks 8K and one policy that doesn't block 8K. Right? And then with the URL map, you can say, for instance, with WordPress, just as an example, everything under WP admin, don't block 8K. Right? Because that's where you're doing that's the interface, that's the administration interface to WordPress, and that's probably where you're going to want to do your posts, unless you've got something on your page that users need to do a post of a large object, and you treat it a little bit differently.
So it's sort of like an option that you could use as more of a secure, sensible default, and then you block 8K standard, and then if you need it, you allow it, and then you just make sure that you're providing the additional protection.
That's right, yeah. Now, I did run into one other problem with this because this is how I implemented it in one of our clients. And that problem being Cloud Armor only allows you to have 20 rules globally. Now, you can have multiple policies, but all the rules in those policies cannot exceed 20, the count of 20. Now, the policy that we had at the time had 11 rules in it. So if I wanted to make another policy that duplicated that, I was at 22 rules. So I was over the limit.
Oh, okay, right.
Right.
So you'd have 20 policies with one rule each.
You could have 20 policies with one rule each, right? Or 2 policies with 10 rules, but you can't go over 20 rules.
Yeah, right.
So how do I get around that one? Well, fortunately, I already had IAP enabled on those WordPress admin pages. So IAP is Identity Aware Proxy. So you can't even get to the URL without passing the Google IAP. In other words, you get the pop-up prompt that says, hey, you've got to log into Google, and the only people that are accepted on that pop-up prompt are us, being the consultants, and in this case, the client's domain. They were allowed to log in. So you can't even get to the URL. So I just thought, well, why does it even need a security policy? It doesn't need it. If it's protected already from the public internet, obviously. I mean, there could be an internal attack, but that's pretty unlikely. I mean, it's a risk. I think it's an acceptable risk. So yeah, I just removed the policy. Still had the block 8K for the public side, obviously, and then all the admin pages were only available through IAP anyway, and that was it.
And it was already just a subset of the org who could get to it.
Only a subset of the org that could get to it. Only the administrators of WordPress could get to it, right? And that seems to work. I think that's an acceptable compromise.
So if you've already compromised an administrator account, you could already do way more to that environment than just, a misshapen packet.
So that was the answer. Of course, the other way to approach it would have been to reduce the number of Cloud Armor rules, but there already is a well-defined set of rules that you should just use out of the box for Cloud Armor.
Yeah, there's some good stuff in there you wouldn't want to be without.
Exactly, yeah. And I didn't want to take that off the public, the front end, so I just went with this solution. Anyway, that's one to be aware of, and there is a way to fix it. I'll link to the particular article where it's been pointed out to me in the show notes. All right, so from something I've been playing around with to something you've been playing around with, Dave, Google introduces Google Cloud Architecture Diagramming Tool.
Yeah, and this is, it's nice that there's now like a native tool. This is basically, a fork or a collaboration with Excalidraw. So I'm sure, many people listening would have done architecture diagrams in Excalidraw. Personally, I've used like Draw.io a lot too. The really nice thing with this is it does integrate with like the Cloud Developer cheat sheet. So when you're going to actually like pull, artifacts onto your architecture design, it pulls all the right logos. It gets you a little blurb on like the 4-word explanation about like, hey, this is, what compute engine is. And, so there's no digging around like, okay, yeah, I'm going to put some compute engine instances here. I'm going to have some GKE nodes. I better go grab the right icon set for those. There's a lot to love in it.
Yeah, just finding that icon set in IO Draw is a challenge in itself.
yeah, exactly right. So it's nice having it there. You get a nice like a selection you can sort of go through, like, oh, give me all the compute options or give me all the databases. I need machine learning, and it kind of gives you all your options there you can pull in. There's some good, there's some I guess improvement opportunities in it. So my great is definitely like not having to go search for like the right icon. There's also a lot of pre-canned diagrams in there that you can just drag in, and you get like here's a three-tier application. It pulls a whole diagram in that you can sort of then go and modify as you require, which like certainly
and,
like.
I guess they would be based on Google Cloud best practice as well.
Yeah,
build out. Yeah.
The really nice thing is when you're starting a new architecture design and you got that clean slate. Okay, where do I start? What's the first thing that I can put down, and then I can start building up my flow diagram. So it's nice to be able to use something like that and then build off it for yourself. There's also a feature in there where you can do a one-click Cloud Shell deploy for your design. So you get a button in there. So far, and this is one of my no-likes with it, is I haven't worked out how to make those myself. They're definitely there. If you pull in from one of the pre-canned diagrams, you can do it, and it fires up your Cloud Shell, and then it gives you an option to pull down the Git repo and install it all in one line. It's really slick. But I haven't worked out how to put that button there myself and how to change it. I can't see an option for how to do that yet. So that's my, like, it looks great. I just want to know how I can use it for my own projects.
Was he use Deployment Manager to do this or something, does it? Must build up a Deployment Manager file and then you just run it.
Yeah, it will deploy the whole stack. I was a little cagey on deploying some of it because some of the ones I was messing around with were sort of quite large. It'd be quite a lot of resources. So but it's definitely something I want to spend a lot more time with.
That's what our sandbox account's for.
Yeah, well, exactly right.
Yeah, cool. Although I don't know, like if they're using, I don't know, these kind of tools, you have to wonder how efficient it's going to be, right? And then if you want to make a change, are you really, how familiar with the ins and outs of the design are you? Are you actually going to be able to go in there and make the nice little change that you want?
Yeah, true. And it's not like it goes back the other way. Like if you had your whole application written as code, it's not like you can spill that back into being a diagram again. So you would have that double handling. And I think one of the other things that I would put down as feature request for the tool is there's not a good collaboration option in it. So like I can't share the link to a design with you. I can send you the file and you can import it, but we can't update it together live and version it. It doesn't have like native integration with Google Drive. So there's some there's some features that I'm hoping would come to make this a much more useful tool.
Yeah, it's always the way, though, isn't it? Minimal viable product, get it out there, and then see what the adoption of it is, and develop it if it's spend the time and money on it if it's going to take off. I could see this being usable. Yeah. But that not having it shareable could be prohibitive because we'd like to have all our diagrams and things available for everyone to use. Yeah, and share with our clients and things, and that could be a problem. But I mean, even if you're just knocking up something quick, can you like export to PDF?
Yeah, like you can export out as just like a PNG, and so you can do that. So you can put that up, and that works pretty nicely. Yeah,
might be good for a document, right? If you want a nice looking diagram in a document, and you export a PNG, paste it in there, and that's it. Yeah. Yeah, all right. That's a good one. I'll put a link in the show notes. I'm going to have a play with that. Yeah, nice. We'll look at the slightly bad news here. I mean, look, I don't like hearing stories about companies, and I particularly don't like hearing stories about this from Google. But we report on everything as it is. But we did mention in a few shows ago that Google had laid off some staff from Looker. It looks like the story is a little deeper than we might have thought in the beginning. Apparently, the decision had been planned a few months in advance. One Google Cloud exec said in an internal town hall after the layoffs. I'm quoting here in an article from Emerging Tech Brew, and they have an article saying before layoffs hit Google-owned Looker, workers unknowingly trained their replacements. Yeah, that's a bad smell. Not a good look. We always ask, what's the goal of this? Why are we bringing on these contractor teams? Are our jobs at stake? The employee who requested an anonymity recalled. They would always be like, no, of course we don't just want to bring on the contractors so you guys can have more time off.
I guess a lot of time off.
The timeline felt really aggressive. So, we know the story of Looker. Google acquired the startup almost exactly 2 years ago, $2.6 billion, the first major acquisition under the Google Cloud current CEO Thomas Kurian. But it looks like what they've done is they had a big round of layoffs, and they had these Looker engineers train up some partners from Infosys. They were kept in the dark about it, and then suddenly they were invited to an important meeting, in air quotes, and they were all sacked.
Yeah, there's a sad anecdote in that article where the person, like, everything had been going really well. He'd been told the job was safe. He thought he was actually in line for a promotion, and he gets invited to this thing thinking it's the promotion meeting. Like, oh, that's You'd go from 100 to 0 pretty quick.
Yeah, we were told then your positions are not going to get eliminated. They might change over time. They might get more specialised, but they will never get eliminated. This is what they were told originally. Another member of Looker US support team who was affected by the layoffs told us, Google does not believe in layoffs. So I like to think, this situation, it's not Google as a whole, or it's not really any company as a whole. I don't think, well, I'm sure there's exceptions, but I don't think any company sets out to screw their employees like this. I like to think it's probably a couple of individuals at that level that have decided that this is the way they're going to run with it. And
it was probably in some it was in someone's performance plan to get it done this year, and they were going to see it through.
Yeah, sure, yeah, absolutely. But look, there is sort of an olive branch. What they can do if affected workers do not find a new role at Google within 60 days, so they've got 60 days, they'll be terminated, right? Pending a signed release agreement, given 12 weeks of base pay plus 1 additional week per year worked. So they get that severance pay, along with a lump sum that will vary, some sort of bonus payment, I guess. And the company is also providing mobility specialists to help navigate available roles. So I did speculate that they might have something like that when we talked about this a few weeks ago, and it turns out they do. It's like a group that helps reposition displaced employees. Large companies tend to have that. If they need to do some upskilling or they, want to move their career, horizontally or vertically, then these guys will help them do that.
I mean, it is still so hard to get good people now. So if there's, a line of business where they've decided actually, we don't need some of the in-house support teams, but if there's skilled talent in there, I'm sure they'll help find them, new locations to be, even if it's not within the Looker arm.
Yeah, absolutely. And best of luck to those that are looking for a new job. All right, let's move on to some more sort of upbeat news. We did report the other week that there was a bunch of price increases with Google, and we will talk about that a little bit later. But Google have introduced a new feature where you can save some money. So they're giving from one hand and they're taking from one hand and they're giving in the other hand.
Yeah, you have to use the new features though, right? You have to go and grab it. You got to
use the new feature, yeah. So this feature is save big by temporarily suspending unneeded compute engine VMs, now in general availability. So what this is a suspend or resume mode, and it'll rather than just completely shutting down the VM, it'll just suspend the VM, and then when you unsuspend or you wake it up, it'll be exactly in the state it was in before.
It's just like putting your laptop to sleep.
Just like putting your laptop to sleep, yeah. That's right. And it does it in a really cool way. It actually uses the ACPI S3 signal at the BIOS level, which is just exactly what the BIOS would do to put your laptop to sleep.
So no special agents or anything there. It's just like pushing the little moon button on your keyboard.
Like pushing the moon button. Yeah, that's right. And so supports, supports all OSs that support that as well.
I can really see that being great for, maybe not so much for like application servers. I mean, if you had them on schedules already, then brilliant. Especially if you're not using them out of hours. But if you're using like workstation, like cloud workstations, you've got people who are actually like signing in and doing work to just be able to suspend the machines instead of fresh booting them every day.
Yeah. Yeah,
I come in, VDI, fire up my session. Hey, everything's right there. I'm already starting work.
I'm still there, yeah, and it's been on pause all night, saving you money.
Yeah, just paying for a little bit extra storage.
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud here. Other use cases, like what about batch processing? Something that's got a batch, during business hours. At the end of the day, it might be halfway through a run, but it gets paused, and then at the start of the next day, it starts up again and just continues off where it was. You don't need to. You're not restarting the whole run again. Could be a use case.
Yeah, I guess especially for applications that haven't been, fully modernized, where you would have, taken that batch process out and used a more of a cloud native solution. But yeah, if you've still got like legacy apps, there's a lot of different ways that you can use it. So utilizing compute engine suspend and resume functionality has allowed this company to reduce operation costs for our compute engine driven development environment. So they're using them for dev workstations. They allow each engineer to customize their environment's working hours, which triggers suspension at the end of each workday and resumption at the beginning of the next day. This has reduced our VM instance usage times from 168 hours a week to 60 hours a week per environment. And if you're thinking that those are development workstations, they're probably pretty beefy. So that's nearly, what's that? That's 2/3? Close enough to 2/3 of a reduction.
Right. Yeah, no, that's big savings, big savings.
Yeah, enabling us to save thousands of dollars each month.
So looking at the instance schedule, it doesn't seem to be a way to define it to be sleep or power off.
You can only use the Cloud CLI or the Compute Engine API to suspend an instance. So I guess you'd have to set up, like at the moment, you'd need to have like another tool.
Right. So you could have a function or a cloud schedule or something to do it. Right. It doesn't do it out of the instance schedule at the moment. All right, so that's how Google's trying to save you some money, but they're also costing us a little bit more. An article here on InfoQ by Renato Lozio says the cloud community has been raising concerns about architectural implications and the end of long-term prices never go up cloud tenant. The price changes Google is making strike at the heart of their customers' applications and will force many customers to re-architect their applications or pay a much larger amount to keep their existing architecture. So we reported on this last week that Google has made some changes to the billing around snapshots and egress. Specifically, it's persistent disk snapshots, cloud load balancing, network intelligence center, cloud ops monitoring. And the problem is you've got these apps that are architected around a certain design, obviously, and there's a certain cost in place. To re-architect those to reduce those costs is extremely painful.
Especially if you're like you've architected something where you're leveraging something that's either not being charged for or it's something where you sit in the free tier. Like if you're paying for something and the cost goes up, you can calculate that. That's easy. But if you're not measuring something that you're getting for free and all of a sudden it's going to have a charge on it, that it gives you a lot of unknowns.
It gives you a lot of unknowns. Yeah, that's right. I mean, the price increases aren't coming into October, but it's still the exercise where you need to sit down and try and guesstimate what it's going to be. It'd be nice. We talked about this on the last episode. If there was a tool that was going to give you what the price is going to be in the future.
Yeah, it'd be nice if you could see billing APIs like, hey, right now it's this. Under the new pricing coming in October, it will be this.
It will be this, yeah. So you've got your 6 months to try and sort it out. Another quote from the article here: as an industry, we have seen a decade and a half of anecdata about a fundamental tenet of the cloud adoption tsunami sweeping the global economy. Specifically, that if you build something in the cloud, it will over time become more stable, more capable, and if the price changes, it will be a reduction instead of an increase. We now have clear evidence that that tenet is in fact untrue in Google's case and not to be depended upon. Strong words there. You have to wonder, so Google have made the argument, we're doing this to bring it in line with other cloud vendors. But did they really have to? We know everyone knows they're losing money on GCP. Is this going to generate more revenue for them in GCP and try and cover that loss? Probably not, right? And all they've done is put the developers offside, at least in the short term. That's how it seems to me.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that they've got some numbers there that would have had some justification to make the change. But that's cold comfort for the people who are actually going to be on the receiving end of paying for those bills.
Yeah, that's right. yeah, and this article finishes off, the price changes will not take effect until October, as we know. So, yeah, it remains to be seen what the wash-up is on that. I've only got 1 or 2 projects there and I don't pay a lot, but it shouldn't affect me too much. But we'll get clients come knocking on our door. What's going on with the price? I'm sure. All right, then, wanted to move on to the last article here about Google Chrome. A couple of exploits that have popped up recently. Looks like North Korea, had actually exploited state-sanctioned exploit in Google Chrome. An article here on the Register saying we blocked North Korea's Chrome exploit, says Google. Fake Oracle and Disney job ads to lure victims is certainly an interesting choice. So they started with a phishing attack to Oracle and Disney with a link in there, sent them to a bogus site. There was a hidden iframe in there that spun up some Java and then run up this apparently undisclosed exploit within Chrome. Google on Thursday described how it apparently caught and thwarted North Korea's effort to exploit a remote code execution vulnerability in Chrome. The exploit itself used JavaScript to build a system fingerprint and then triggered the vulnerability when an unknown set of conditions were met. So there seems to be a lot of unknowns about this. They followed it along and just ended up with a lot of dead air. A lot of the sites that ended up being pulled down by the time they discovered it. But, it goes to show, keep your stuff patched, keep your stuff updated, right? Especially with web stuff.
I think the really interesting thing for me, as certainly someone in tech where you're getting spammed with recruiters all day long, is that was one of their attack methods, right? Is they were like pinging people on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, we've got a job for you at Oracle and looks like Disney and stuff here. Like this is an awesome opportunity." Yeah. There's a link to it and the person clicks it. So
yeah, the team masqueraded as recruiters, emailing Mark's bogus details of roles at Google, Oracle, and Disney with links to websites designed to look like Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and Disney Careers.
Hey, based on the quality of some of the recruitment spam that I've received, I wonder how many of them were actually just operating out of Pyongyang.
Yeah, once the site was visited, served a hidden iframe that exploited the browser bug to achieve arbitrary code execution. So this apparently happened back in February. The patch that closed the vulnerability in question was released for Chromium on Valentine's Day, and Google noted that the North Koreans made multiple exploitation attempts in the days immediately following. But of course, it was patched by that point. So that's kind of the first little one for Chrome, but there's been a more recent one.
Yep, a big one.
So what can you tell us about it, Dave?
So I didn't have particularly deep on what the exploit was on this updated version, or this now fixed version of Chrome. It's not just in Chrome. It's like anything that was based off the Chromium project. I had to get like Brave updated, and if you had like Edge, the Chromium version of Edge, like everything had to be done.
Anything that's not Firefox.
Yeah, exactly. But my Netscape Navigator was unaffected. But no, so it was a big one that actually, I think, given the wide use of everything that's based off the Chromium project now, like everyone should just make sure they've done that to close and reopen.
The bug itself seems to be a problem in JavaScript, where it's a pretty common problem where if a variable or memory location is accessed using the wrong type, it can cause it to crash and land out of bounds, and you can do arbitrary code execution with that kind of failure.
Right, and looks here that they actually saw that this was being actively exploited in the wild. So
take a quote from the article here. The vulnerability, which as stated is believed to already be in use, is also present in Chromium, the development form of Chrome web browser. Chromium is also the basis for numerous other web browsers and applications, including Edge, Opera, Vivaldi, Brave, and even Electron. Yeah, so not Firefox. As such, Google has also stated that they encourage its developers to make sure they update and issue patches to their users. Do we know of any active exploits where this was used?
I haven't seen
right now
them be announced about who's been exploited based off it. We've been seeing a lot of these lapsus exploits in the last sort of week or two across a lot of wide companies, but whether or not that's related to this.
So the moral of the story is, if you see the update icon in Chrome, then you better update it, because it could be a 0 day just waiting there for you.
Yeah, definitely. I know when this first came out, my browser, the little update notification had already kind of like turned to red on there. Oh, okay, I better get it done. I'll get it done as soon as I found out about it. Close the browser and
better go and do that.
Yeah,
because we don't, right? I mean, I just leave my laptop sitting here and get up for the day and walk away, and then come back, sit down, and just pick up where I left off.
Yeah, 4 windows and 300 tabs.
2 weeks, it could just be sitting there, unless Discovery gives me that little red icon to say there's an update there for your KDE, then I'll grab it. But yeah, could be just sitting there forever. All right, well, we'll finish up there. Thanks, Dave, for joining us today. It's been a great chat.
Yeah, awesome. Cheers, Steve.
And we're going to have, you'll be around more and more often, and we're going to be looking deeply into GCVE more and more as we go along, I think.
Yeah, definitely. People will be tired of it by the end.
They're going to get tired of hearing about it, yeah. Look, go to iTunes, write us a review. That'll really help out the show. And don't forget to check out Kasna Between Two Clouds, our sister YouTube channel, where you'll see our CEO and CTO shooting the breeze about Google Cloud and all things tech. You can contact the show on gcplife@kasna.com.au. And we've got a Twitter account there too, GCPLife. And don't forget to check out our website. I'm pretty sure you can just Google that now and you'll find it. And don't forget, today's sponsor was Kasna. At Kasna, we make your Google Cloud solutions possible. Thanks for joining us today, Dave. We'll see you in a fortnight.
All right. See you then.
I always say next week or last week, but it's 2 weeks, so it doesn't work.
You will see me next week, but they won't.
I'll probably see you in an hour at our next meeting.